She thought her enemy was the syndicate. She never imagined it was her own blood. When love and betrayal collide, the only choice left is war. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. Mira Kavanagh stood at her apartment window, the city lights bleeding through the glass like broken promises, the thunder rolling as if the sky itself carried a grudge. To most people, it was just another storm. To Mira, it felt like an omen. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, her reflection staring back at her. 32 years old, sharp green eyes that had seen too much, and a quiet elegance that came not from wealth but from surviving disappointment. Her long auburn hair clung to her shoulders, damp from her walk home, her blouse sticking to her skin. She had once believed in love, in loyalty, in family. That was before everything was stripped away, before she learned that betrayal often comes from the people you trust the most. Tonight, as the storm raged, so did the storm inside her. Mira had built a life carefully, piece by piece. She was a senior architect at Harrington and Blake, a prestigious design firm in the heart of the city. Her projects had reshaped skylines, yet the credit never fully belonged to her. Someone was always there to take it, to dim her light. She had swallowed her pride too many times, smiling for the sake of professionalism, for the illusion of peace. But inside, resentment coiled tighter with each stolen recognition. At the center of it all stood Damien Thorne, her boss, her mentor once, and now her greatest rival. Charismatic, calculating, and dangerous in ways most couldn't see, Damien had built his empire not only on talent, but on manipulation. He had once promised to champion Mira's career, only to use her brilliance as a stepping stone. Projects she designed bore his signature. Ideas she nurtured filled his portfolio. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was personal. Because Damien Thorne wasn't just her boss. He had been her lover. Mira closed her eyes as that truth burned through her again. She had given him her trust, her time, her heart, believing he saw her as his equal. But the affair ended in silence, his cold dismissal echoing louder than any argument. "You're too sentimental, Mira. This world doesn't reward sentiment." Those words had gutted her. He moved on easily, flaunting his new muse, a younger intern named Serena Vale, while Mira was left to swallow her humiliation. The thunder cracked, and Mira's fists clenched at her sides. For months, she had told herself she would move on, that revenge was beneath her. But the more she watched Damien's smirk plastered across magazines, shaking hands with politicians and billionaires, the more she realized men like Damien only understood destruction. And Mira was done being silent. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. She crossed the room and picked it up. A message flashed across the screen from an unknown number. "You deserve to know the truth about Damien. Meet me tomorrow. 8 p.m. The Glass House Cafe. Come alone." Her heart thudded. The Glass House was an upscale restaurant known for its mirrored walls and intimate corners. She had no idea who the sender was. The number wasn't saved, no profile picture, nothing traceable. A trap? Or a lifeline? For a moment, Mira considered deleting it, ignoring it, pretending she didn't care. But she did care. Too much. The storm outside roared as if daring her to act, and Mira felt the familiar surge of something she had buried for too long, defiance. She typed a single word back, "I'll be there." The next evening, Mira dressed carefully. A black silk dress that clung to her figure, heels that clicked like gunshots against marble floors. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup precise. She was no longer the woman Damien had discarded. She was steel beneath velvet now. The Glass House Cafe shimmered with golden lights, the mirrored walls reflecting fractured images of every guest. She scanned the crowd, her pulse steady, her mind calculating. A waiter guided her to a private corner where a man already waited. He was older, mid-40s perhaps, his suit tailored but modest. His dark eyes held the sharpness of someone who had seen too much of the world. "Mira Kavanagh," he said softly, rising to shake her hand. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cool. He gestured for her to sit. "Name's Julian Cross. Once upon a time, I was Damien's partner. In business and in crime. Mira's breath caught. She leaned forward, her nails digging into her palm. Crime? Julian nodded, sliding a small envelope across the table. Everything Damien built. He built on lies. Fraud. Bribery. Even blackmail. You think he only stole your work? He's destroyed lives to protect his empire. And now he plans to destroy yours. Mira's chest tightened, her instincts warring between disbelief and recognition. Damien had always been ruthless, but crime? Blackmail? What do you want from me? She whispered. Julian's eyes hardened. Justice. But I can't take him down alone. He trusts you, even if he pretends otherwise. With your help, we can expose him. But understand this, Mira, once you start, there's no going back. Damien doesn't forgive betrayal. Mira almost laughed at the irony. Damien didn't forgive the betrayal? He thrived on it. Her hand hovered over the envelope. Inside, she could already sense the weight of secrets that could topple a giant. The air between them crackled with danger, with possibility. She lifted her chin, her decision made. I want him ruined. Tell me everything. Julian leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Then you're about to enter a world darker than you ever imagined. The mirrored walls of the cafe reflected their meeting in 1,000 fragments, as though fate itself was watching. Mira felt the ground shift beneath her life, the storm inside her fusing with the storm she was about to unleash. For the first time in months, she smiled. It wasn't soft. It wasn't kind. It was the smile of someone who had chosen her path. And that path was revenge. The envelope burned in Mira's hands long after she left the Glass House Cafe. She didn't open it there. She wanted space, silence, a place where no mirrored walls or watchful strangers could catch her reaction. Back in her apartment, the storm had calmed, leaving the city streets slick with rain. Mira poured herself a glass of red wine, set the envelope on the table, and stared at it. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had waited months for something, anything, that could fracture Damien Thorne's carefully curated empire. Finally, she slid her finger under the flap and pulled out a stack of documents, photographs, and a flash drive. The documents detailed payments, offshore accounts, shell companies, and transfers that tied Damien to illegal property acquisitions. The photographs showed Damien in places he shouldn't have been, meeting with men whose reputations screamed corruption, slipping envelopes under tables, laughing with a judge who had conveniently ruled in his favor just last year. But it was the flash drive that stopped her cold. Mira connected it to her laptop, her heart hammering as the files loaded. The first folder contained recordings, Damien's voice, smooth and confident, making deals that would ruin lives. Another folder revealed confidential blueprints for a government project Mira had once worked on, designs she had created, stamped with Damien's name instead of hers. Her throat tightened as she clicked on the final folder labeled Personal. Videos, pictures, text exchanges, not just of her, but of others. Women. Vulnerable, younger women like Serena Vale. Damien hadn't just stolen careers. He had collected people like trophies, manipulating, using, discarding. Her stomach churned with a mixture of rage and disgust. She had known he was ruthless, but this was predatory. She slammed her laptop shut, her wine glass trembling in her hand. Revenge wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't about one stolen career or one broken heart. This was about exposing a man who had buried countless lives beneath his ambition. But Julian Cross had been right. Once she stepped into this, there was no going back. The next morning, Mira walked into Harrington and Blake as though nothing had changed. She wore her calm like armor, her smile practiced, her heels clicking against the polished marble floors. But inside, she carried the weight of secrets that could shatter Damien's empire in an instant. Damien Thorne stood near the elevators, surrounded by a group of executives, his charm in full display. His tailored suit clung to his broad frame, his dark hair perfectly styled, his smile calculated to disarm. When his eyes met Mira's, he gave her that familiar smirk, the one that had once melted her, but now only reminded her of his betrayal. Mira, he drawled smoothly as she approached, dismissing the executives with a flick of his hand. I trust the designs for the Meridian project are ready? They're on your desk, she said, her voice crisp, professional. Exactly as you requested. His gaze lingered a moment longer, searching for cracks in her facade. You've always been reliable. That's what I liked about you. His smile sharpened. And what I miss. The audacity nearly made her laugh. She masked it with a polite nod. Some things aren't worth missing. His jaw tightened, just for a second, before he recovered. Careful, Mira. Sentiment has a way of clouding judgment. She turned away before he could see the fire in her eyes. Oh, judgment wasn't clouded anymore. It was sharpened into a weapon. Later that afternoon, Mira found herself in a quiet corner of the firm's library, her phone buzzing with a new message from Julian. Meet me again. Tonight. The pier. Midnight. Her pulse quickened. The pier was secluded, the kind of place where whispers could travel without ears to catch them. Dangerous, but necessary. That night, Mira pulled her coat tighter against the biting wind as she walked along the deserted pier. The water slapped against the wooden posts, the air thick with salt and secrecy. Julian stood near the end, his face shadowed, his eyes scanning the dark horizon. You opened it, he said without preamble. I did. Mira's voice was steady. It's worse than I thought. Julian's expression was grim. And that's only a fraction. Damien has layers upon layers of protection. Powerful friends. People who won't hesitate to silence anyone who threatens them. I'm not afraid of him, Mira said. You should be. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Damien has enemies, Mira. Dangerous ones. But he also has leverage on judges, politicians, even the police. You think you can just walk into the light with this evidence? He'll bury you before you can blink. Then what's your plan? She asked sharply. Julian's gaze met hers, hard and unflinching. We take him down from the inside. Slowly. Piece by piece. Use his own arrogance against him. He'll never see it coming. Mira hesitated. And where do I fit into this? You're his blind spot, Julian said simply. For all his cruelty, Damien still underestimates you. That's his weakness. You get close again. Earn his trust. Let him believe you're broken, that you want back in his orbit. And while he's distracted, we cut the strings holding up his empire. Her stomach twisted. The thought of pretending to return to Damien, of faking softness when all she wanted was vengeance, felt like swallowing poison. But poison was sometimes necessary. Mira drew in a breath, the icy wind stinging her face. If I do this, there's no turning back. Julian nodded. There never was. As Mira walked back from the pier, her mind churned with conflict. She hated Damien. She despised the thought of letting him touch her world again. And yet, the vision of his empire collapsing, of his name dragged through mud, of his smug smile wiped clean, it ignited a fire in her chest. She reached her apartment and sank onto the couch, staring at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Damien Thorne slept soundly, believing himself untouchable. But soon, very soon, Mira Kavanagh would prove him wrong. And this time, she wouldn't just take back what he stole. She'd take everything. The next few days passed in a blur of calculation. Mira Kavanagh had always been meticulous, but now every move felt like a chess piece sliding into place. The difference was, this wasn't about winning a promotion or securing a client. This was war. She studied Damien Thorne from a distance, watching the patterns of his empire. He thrived in the spotlight, moving between boardrooms, fundraisers, and glittering galas with practiced ease. Yet beneath the charm, Mira could see the cracks, the way his temper flared when a deal hit a snag, the flicker of paranoia when whispers followed him. Julian was right. Damien was arrogant, but arrogance made men blind. Still, the thought of re-entering his orbit made Mira's stomach twist. Memories lurked in every shadow, his hand at the small of her back at a gala, the way his laughter once wrapped around her like velvet. She hated that her body still remembered, even when her mind screamed betrayal. But Mira had learned something powerful in her years under Damien's thumb. Vulnerability could be weaponized. And now, she would wield it like a blade. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. Harrington and Blake was hosting a lavish gala for the Meridian Project, a show of wealth and influence to impress investors. The invitations were gold-embossed, the guest list glittering with politicians, CEOs, and socialites. Mira had considered skipping it. But then she remembered Julian's words, "You're his blind spot." If she wanted to get close, this was the stage. On the night of the gala, Mira stepped out of her car like a vision cut from the storm itself. She wore a midnight blue gown that shimmered with every movement, her hair cascading in soft waves, her emerald eyes framed with precision. She wasn't just attending. She was making an entrance. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes, laughter, and music swirling like smoke. But all of it faded the moment Damien Thorne saw her. His gaze locked onto her from across the room, his smile freezing for a fraction of a second before reforming into that practiced charm. He excused himself from his circle of admirers and moved toward her, his presence commanding the room like gravity itself. "Mira," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "You came." She tilted her head, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. "Why wouldn't I? The Meridian Project is monumental." His eyes flickered, searching for her angle. "You look extraordinary." "Do I?" she replied coolly, sipping her champagne. "Funny, I don't recall you noticing before." Damien chuckled, though his jaw tightened. "Perhaps I took too much for granted." "Yes, you did," she thought. "And now you'll pay." For the rest of the evening, Mira played her part perfectly. She let Damien orbit her like a planet caught in her gravity, close enough to tempt, distant enough to frustrate. She laughed lightly at his remarks, brushed his arm when the crowd was watching, then pulled away as if the moment meant nothing. It was a performance, but beneath it, Mira felt the strange heat of old sparks threatening to reignite. That unsettled her more than she cared to admit. When the gala ended, Damien offered her a ride home. Mira hesitated for only a moment before accepting. In the back of his sleek black car, the city lights flickered past like silent witnesses. "Why now?" he asked suddenly, his gaze sharp. "Why come tonight, looking like this?" Mira met his eyes, her voice steady. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending. Maybe I wanted to remind you of what you lost." His smile curved slowly, dangerously. "And what if I want it back?" Her breath caught, though she masked it with a smirk. "Then you'll have to prove you deserve it." The car stopped outside her apartment, the tension thick enough to cut. Damien leaned closer, his voice low. "Be careful, Mira. You play this game too well. One day you might win." She slipped out of the car, her heels clicking against the pavement. Without looking back, she said, "That's the plan." Inside her apartment, Mira poured herself another glass of wine and leaned against the counter, her mind racing. The dangerous part had begun. Damien was hooked again, circling her with the same hunger he once had. But unlike before, she wasn't falling into his orbit. She was pulling him into hers. Her phone buzzed. A message from Julian. "He's taking the bait. Don't let him get too close. Remember, this isn't about love. It's about leverage." Mira stared at the words, her chest tightening. She knew Julian was right. This wasn't about romance, no matter how intoxicating the danger felt. It was about revenge, about survival. And yet, deep down, a part of her feared that Damien's touch still had the power to unravel her. She downed the rest of her wine and set the glass down with a sharp clink. No, not this time. She wouldn't be the broken woman he left behind. This time, she would be the one holding the blade. The following week felt like walking a razor's edge. Mira Kavanagh allowed herself to drift back into Damien Thorne's orbit with careful precision. Lunch meetings turned into late-night strategy sessions. He invited her to his penthouse again, under the guise of discussing the Meridian Project, and she accepted, but always with caution. Every glance, every touch was calculated, every word a trap laid in silk. To outsiders, it looked like reconciliation. To Damien, it looked like control slipping back into his grasp. But to Mira, it was war disguised as intimacy. And she was winning, until the night the shadows shifted. It was a Thursday evening when Damien invited her to an exclusive gathering at his penthouse. The city skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the glass walls reflecting the wealth and power Damien wielded so effortlessly. Mira moved through the crowd of investors and politicians with practiced ease, her gown shimmering like midnight fire, her smile concealing the storm beneath. Damien stood at the center, magnetic as ever. He commanded the room with a glass of whiskey in hand, laughing, weaving influence with every word. Yet his gaze often returned to Mira, a silent reminder that she was his prize, even if he didn't know the game she was playing. As the evening wore on, Damien drew Mira aside to a private study. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to her. His eyes gleamed with something darker than charm. "You've changed," he said, studying her face. "There's steel in you now. I like it." Mira smirked. "Maybe I finally learned how to play your game." Damien chuckled low. "Careful, Mira. You don't want to play against me. People who do don't last long." Her fingers tightened around the glass. She met his gaze, her voice soft but steady. "Maybe you underestimate me." For a moment, their eyes locked, an electric clash of history, desire, and danger. Then Damien leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You think you can hurt me? You think I don't see what you're doing?" Mira's heart skipped. He knew? But before she could respond, Damien smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. "I almost admire it. The fire in you. But remember, Mira, you were always best when you stood beside me, not against me." He touched her cheek lightly, his hand warm, his presence overwhelming. For one terrifying second, Mira felt herself falter. The old feelings clawed at her, whispering of the nights when his touch had meant something different, when his voice had been velvet instead of poison. But then she remembered Serena Vale. She remembered the stolen projects, the flash drive, the videos. She remembered the humiliation, the dismissal, the way he had broken her trust without a second thought. Her steel returned. She pulled back sharply, her voice like ice. "You mistake me, Damien. I don't stand beside you anymore. I stand against you." Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, perhaps even respect, but beneath it, a shadow of danger. He leaned back, sipping his drink. "Then I suppose we're at war." Later that night, after the guests had gone and the penthouse had fallen silent, Mira slipped into the study again. Damien was distracted with a phone call in another room, his voice sharp, impatient. She moved quickly, her eyes scanning the shelves and drawers. And then she saw it, a locked cabinet. She pulled a bobby pin from her hair, her hands steady despite the pounding of her heart. The lock clicked open. Inside were files, contracts, ledgers, and photographs. The weight of Damien's empire in black and white. Mira's pulse quickened as she snapped quick photos with her phone, her fingers trembling with adrenaline. This was the proof Julian needed. But then a voice sliced through the silence. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Mira froze. Slowly she turned. Serena Vale stood in the doorway, her wide eyes glinting with suspicion. The younger woman clutched her phone, her expression wavering between fear and triumph. Mira's mind raced. Serena, Damien's new protege, his new toy. She couldn't know how deep this went. Not yet. Looking for a pen, Mira lied smoothly, slipping her phone into her clutch. "Damien asked me to make notes." Serena's brow furrowed. "In a locked cabinet." Mira forced a smile, stepping closer. "He doesn't like leaving things lying around. You know how he is." For a moment, Serena hesitated. But then she lifted her chin, her voice cold. "I don't trust you, Mira. Damien warned me about you." Mira's stomach dropped. Warned her? How much did Damien suspect? Before Mira could respond, footsteps echoed down the hall. Damien's voice grew closer, still sharp from his call. Serena's eyes flicked to the cabinet, then back to Mira, and a dangerous smile curled on her lips. "You're playing with fire," Serena whispered. And then she turned and walked away, her silence more dangerous than any threat. That night, back in her apartment, Mira paced the floor, her nerves raw. The photographs she had taken burned like embers on her phone, but Serena's words haunted her. If Damien suspected, if Serena whispered even half of what she saw, the walls would close in fast. Her phone buzzed. A message from Julian. "We need to meet. Tomorrow. Urgent." Mira sank into her chair, the city lights flickering like warning signals outside her window. She had stepped deeper into the fire than ever before. One wrong move, and Damien would destroy her. But one right move, and she would destroy him first. She closed her eyes, her fists clenched. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was survival. And Mira Kavanagh had no intention of losing. The storm that had exploded in Mira Kavanagh's life during that single night refused to settle. Every corner of her mind still burned with the images of betrayal, like embers that wouldn't die. She hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The luxurious apartment she once considered her safe place now felt like a glass cage where her thoughts echoed too loudly. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the city skyline as if it might offer answers. Her reflection looked like a stranger, eyes hollow, skin pale, jaw clenched with a rage that no amount of tears could soften. She had been deceived, lied to, and most humiliating of all, played. And Mira wasn't the kind of woman who let anyone walk away unscathed. The betrayal had shattered something inside her, but beneath the wreckage, a darker resolve was taking shape. Revenge was no longer a fleeting thought. It was the only path forward. Still, her heart wasn't immune to the other fire stirring within her. Adrian Blackwood's shadow loomed in her thoughts. His presence, his voice, the storm in his eyes, they haunted her as much as the betrayal itself. Could she trust him? Or was he just another piece of the elaborate game? Her phone buzzed on the glass table, yanking her from the spiral. A single message lit up the screen. "You don't know the full story. Meet me. Midnight. The old river docks. Come alone." No name, no signature. But Mira knew the number. Adrian. Her pulse quickened, a confusing mix of anger, curiosity, and something she refused to name. Midnight was hours away, and the thought of stepping into whatever trap this might be both thrilled and terrified her. She poured herself a glass of red wine, the liquid catching the dim light like blood. As it touched her lips, her mind flashed to the smirk on Cassandra Vale's face that night, the look of someone who believed she'd won. Not for long. By midnight, the docks were deserted, cloaked in fog rolling off the river. Mira's heels clicked softly on the worn wood as she stepped forward, her trench coat pulled tight against the cold. She had hidden a small silver blade in the lining, just in case. Adrian emerged from the shadows, his tall figure outlined by the glow of a distant street lamp. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held that same dangerous intensity she remembered. "You came," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of something unsaid. "I should have stayed home," Mira replied coldly. "Why am I here, Adrian? To hear another lie." His jaw tightened. "Because you need the truth. And because if you don't hear it now, you won't survive what's coming." Mira's pulse skipped. Survive? "There are people far more dangerous than Cassandra," Adrian said, stepping closer. "You were never supposed to be pulled into this. But now that you are, they won't stop until you're destroyed." She scoffed, though her grip on the blade in her pocket tightened. "You think I scare that easily?" A faint, almost tragic smile tugged at his lips. "That's what I'm afraid of." Before she could respond, a sharp crack shattered the night. A gunshot. The wooden plank beside her splintered. Mira ducked instinctively as Adrian pulled her against him, his body shielding hers. Figures emerged from the fog, 3 men, armed, moving like shadows. Mira's heart hammered. Her world had just shifted again, tilting into chaos. And in that instant, one thought blazed brighter than all the rest. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. The night split open with chaos. Bullets tore through the fog, splintering the wooden dock around Mira as Adrian dragged her behind a rusting container. The The sharp tang of gunpowder filled her lungs, burning her throat. "Stay low," Adrian barked, pressing his body against hers to shield her as another round whizzed past. Her mind raced, fear, fury, adrenaline all colliding in a storm. She had been lured here, just as she suspected. But the moment she looked into Adrian's eyes, she knew this wasn't his trap. His grip on her arm was too protective, his movements too desperate. Whoever wanted her dead was someone else entirely. The attackers fanned out, their shadows shifting in the mist like predators circling prey. "We can't stay pinned down," Mira hissed. "They'll corner us." Adrian's gaze flicked toward her, surprised. "You're not panicking." "I don't panic," she shot back. "Now tell me you have a way out of this." A smirk ghosted across his lips despite the danger. "I knew there was fire in you." He pulled a compact pistol from inside his jacket and shoved it into her hands. "Ever used one?" Myra's fingers curled around the cold steel. "Not in practice. But I learned fast." "Good. Aim low. Don't hesitate." The moment he broke cover, Mira followed. The world erupted into sound and fury, Adrian's gun barking sharp and precise, Mira squeezing the trigger with trembling but determined hands. The recoil jolted her arm, but the satisfying cry of one assailant dropping to the ground steadied her resolve. The other two pressed harder, returning fire, forcing Mira and Adrian back toward the end of the dock. One wrong step, and the Black River would swallow them whole. "Keep moving," Adrian growled, grabbing Myra's wrist as they dashed behind a stack of crates. Her breath came in ragged bursts, the cold air slicing her lungs. "Who the hell are they?" "The same people Cassandra works for," Adrian said grimly. "But they don't just want you humiliated. They want you erased." Mira froze. "Erased?" His jaw clenched. "Cassandra was just a pawn. There's a bigger game, Mira, and you're standing in the middle of it." Before she could respond, one of the attackers leapt over the crates, knife glinting in the dim light. Myra's instincts surged. She ducked, twisting as the blade slashed past her shoulder. Without thinking, she drove her elbow into the man's ribs, grabbed the hidden silver blade from her coat, and plunged it across his forearm. The man howled, stumbling back. Adrian finished him with a clean shot. For a moment, silence fell. The fog thickened, swallowing the last echo of gunfire. Only one man remained. He didn't advance. Instead, he stood at the far edge of the dock, gun lowered, watching them with unnerving calm. Adrian raised his weapon, but the man lifted a hand. "Not tonight," he called out, voice smooth and deliberate. "The message has been delivered." And with that, he disappeared into the mist. Myra's chest heaved, her blade slick with blood, her pulse racing like thunder. "What message?" she demanded. Adrian's face was carved with shadows. "That you're marked. And now there's no going back." Back at Myra's apartment, the silence was deafening. She paced the length of the living room while Adrian leaned against the window, his profile framed by the glow of the city. "You need to tell me everything," she snapped, her voice sharp as broken glass. "No more half-truths, no more warnings." "Who are they? And why me?" Adrian turned slowly, his eyes locking on hers. "You think this is about your broken heart? About Cassandra parading your life like a trophy? Mira, this goes far beyond that." Her fists clenched. "Then explain it." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "There's a network, a syndicate. Cassandra is tied to them. They manipulate, blackmail, and ruin lives for profit and power. And you," he paused, the words heavy on his tongue. "You're not just another target. You're leverage." "Leverage for what?" Adrian's gaze darkened. "For me." The room tilted, Myra's breath catching. A cold realization cut through her. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. She was caught in a war she didn't even understand, and Adrian, the one man she didn't know if she could trust, was at the very center of it. But before she could demand more, her phone buzzed again, a new message. "You want answers? Tomorrow. Hotel Seraph. Suite 908. Come alone, or Mira pays the price." The sender wasn't named. But the final two words made her blood run cold. Someone knew her name. Someone had been watching. The message burned in Mira's mind long after the screen went dark. Hotel Seraph. Suite 908. Come alone, or Mira pays the price. It wasn't just a threat. It was proof. Proof that someone out there knew her movements, her thoughts, her very name, and they were bold enough to drag her deeper into their twisted game. Adrian studied her from across the room, his jaw tight. "You're not going." Mira's eyes snapped to him. "You don't get to decide that. They're baiting you." His voice was low, urgent. "This is how they work. They dangle just enough truth to pull you closer, and then they break you." Her pulse pounded in her ears, but she refused to flinch. "They already tried to break me. At the docks. At the gala. When Cassandra smiled as if she'd stolen my entire life. I'm still standing." Adrian took a step closer, his shadow stretching long in the dim light. "You don't understand. If you walk into that hotel room, you won't come out the same." "Maybe that's the point," she said, her voice steel. "Because I'm not the same Mira I was before this started. And I refuse to spend the rest of my life hiding while they play with me like a pawn." The silence between them thickened. Then, almost against his will, Adrian's expression softened. He brushed a hand through his dark hair and sighed. "You're reckless." "And you're too careful," she countered. Their eyes locked, a war of wills flickering between them. Beneath it, something else pulsed, a heat, an undeniable pull that terrified Mira more than any gunshot ever could. The next evening, Mira stood outside Hotel Seraph, its gleaming glass facade towering over her like a cathedral of secrets. The night air was sharp, laced with the faint scent of rain. She wore a fitted black dress beneath her trench coat, elegant but practical, with her silver blade hidden at her thigh. Adrian's voice echoed in her memory. "Don't go." But she had to. The unanswered questions gnawed at her, each one slicing deeper than fear itself. The lobby was hushed, marble floors gleaming under soft chandeliers. She kept her head high, her step steady, though every instinct screamed that she was walking into a trap. Suite 908. The elevator ride was endless. Her reflection in the polished doors looked like a stranger, eyes sharp, lips pressed into a determined line. When the door slid open, the hallway was deserted, thick with the hum of silence. She stopped in front of 908. Her hand hovered over the keycard slot. Then, before doubt could settle, she slid the card and stepped inside. The suite was dim, the only light spilling from a single lamp in the corner. And there, seated in an armchair as though he'd been waiting all his life, was a man she didn't recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver at his temples and eyes that gleamed with predatory calm. "Mira Kavanagh," he said, his voice smooth as velvet, dangerous as a blade. At last. She stiffened. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "Names matter less than power. But if it makes you comfortable, call me Silas." Silas. The name carried weight, though she couldn't place it. "You know, Cassandra," he continued, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. "She played her part beautifully. You were humiliated, broken open, vulnerable. Exactly where we wanted you." Mira's throat tightened. "We." He raised his glass in a mock toast. "The syndicate." Her blood turned cold. Adrian's warnings came flooding back. "You wanted me, why?" she asked, forcing her voice steady. Silas leaned forward, his gaze pinning her like prey. "Because you, Mira, are not just collateral. You're the key to controlling Adrian Blackwood. And controlling him means controlling everything." Her stomach dropped. The room tilted, her mind reeling. What does he have to do with this? Silas chuckled. "Adrian is not the man you think he is. He is dangerous, yes. But not because he betrays you. Because he protects you. And that, Mira, makes him weak." Her pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed that she shouldn't believe him, but the certainty in his voice, the calculated calm in his eyes, gnawed at her defenses. "You're lying," she spat. "Am I?" Silas leaned closer, his whisper a venomous caress. "Ask yourself this. Why does he always find you in time? Why does he know their moves before they make them? Because, Mira, Adrian is one of us. Or, at least he was. The floor seemed to fall away beneath her. Her heart warred with her mind, one refusing to believe, the other whispering that every puzzle piece was sliding into place. Adrian's warnings, his secrets, his guilt. Before she could speak, Silas pressed a sealed envelope into her hand. Take this. Read it when you're alone. Then you'll see the truth. Mira stared at the envelope, her fingers trembling. Silas leaned back, sipping his whiskey as though nothing in the world mattered. You can leave now. But remember this, Mira, loyalty is a mask. And everyone, including Adrian, wears one. When Mira stumbled back into the cold night air, the city lights blurred through the storm of emotions choking her. Her chest burned, her throat tight. She wanted to run to Adrian, demand answers, scream until the lies shattered. But as her hand closed around the envelope, another thought struck her, darker and far more dangerous. What if Silas was right? The sealed envelope felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Mira had carried it back from Hotel Seraph as though it were a live grenade. Even now, in the safety of her apartment, her fingers hesitated over the flap. But curiosity was stronger than fear. With a sharp breath, she tore it open. Inside was a single page. Typed words, clinical, merciless. A dossier. Adrian Blackwood's name stamped at the top. Beneath it, line after line detailing his involvement with the syndicate, contracts, covert missions, even the ruin of people Mira had never heard of. And at the bottom, one chilling sentence in bold. Current assignment, Mira Kavanagh. Her stomach dropped. The paper slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the floor like ash. Adrian, the man who had saved her life, who had looked at her with a fire that made her knees tremble, the one she had almost let herself trust, was he nothing more than another betrayal? The sound of her front door unlocking snapped her head up. She spun, adrenaline surging. Adrian stepped inside, his dark hair damp from the rain, his expression tight with concern. Mira, he said softly, I told you not to go. Her voice was ice. And I told you, I'm not your puppet. He froze at her tone. His eyes flicked to the paper on the floor, then back to her face. What did he tell you? Enough. Her chest heaved. Enough to know that you've been lying to me from the start. Adrian's jaw flexed, his fists tightening at his sides. It's not what you think. Then what is it? She demanded, her voice breaking. Because, according to that letter, you're one of them. The syndicate. My enemy. And all of this, she gestured wildly to the space between them, was just another assignment. Adrian stepped forward, desperation etched across his face. Mira, look at me. Do you honestly believe any of this was fake? Her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to scream no, but Silas's words slithered through her mind. Loyalty is a mask, and everyone, including Adrian, wears one. Tell me the truth, she whispered, her voice trembling. Right now. Or I swear, I will never forgive you. Adrian's shoulders sagged, as though a weight he had carried for years finally crushed him. I was with them. Once. A long time ago. Yes, I worked for the syndicate. I did things I'm not proud of. Things that haunt me every night. Her breath caught, her chest burning. But Mira, he continued, his voice raw, I left. I turned on them. And that's why they want me destroyed. That's why they're using you to get to me. The room spun around her. The truth was uglier than she'd imagined. You should have told me, she whispered, tears threatening. You should have trusted me. I wanted to protect you, he said fiercely. The less you knew, the safer you were. Her laugh was bitter, broken. Safe? Adrian, I've been shot at, hunted, and humiliated. My life has turned into a nightmare because of you. Tell me, how is that safe? For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the rain lashing against the windows. Then Adrian moved closer, his voice dropping to a near plea. Mira, you can hate me for the lies. You can hate me for my past. But don't doubt this. Every moment with you has been real. I would burn the world before I let them touch you. Her heart betrayed her with a violent flutter. His eyes, blazing with conviction, pulled at something deep inside her she wanted desperately to ignore. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again, a new message. She glanced down and froze. A live video feed. Cassandra, bound to a chair, her face bloodied, fear etched in her eyes. A voice overlay followed, distorted and cold. Choose, Mira. Come to us alone and Cassandra lives. Refuse and she dies. You have 24 hours. The screen went black. Mira's knees weakened, her hand shaking around the phone. Adrian cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. They're escalating. They know you won't walk away now. Mira stared at the dark screen, her reflection staring back at her. The woman she saw wasn't broken anymore. She was sharpened, hardened. They want a choice, she said quietly. Then I'll give them one. Adrian frowned. Mira. She looked up, her eyes cold fire. No more hiding. No more waiting for them to strike. Tomorrow, I take the fight to them. The night stretched heavy and endless, as though the city itself was holding its breath. Mira sat at the edge of her bed, her phone still in her hand. Cassandra's terrified face burned into her mind. Her enemy's downfall had been her obsession for weeks, but seeing Cassandra bloodied, bound, and helpless stirred something unexpected. Pity. And beneath it, rage. Not because she cared about Cassandra's fate. No, that part of her was long dead, but because the syndicate thought they could control her with it. They wanted to twist her anger into obedience, to use Cassandra as a means to control her. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Her gaze fell to the silver blade resting on the nightstand, its edge gleaming under the dim lamp. Once, it had been just a precaution. Now, it felt like an extension of herself, a reminder of how far she'd come. The bedroom door creaked. Adrian leaned against the frame, his shirt damp from the rain, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. You haven't slept, he murmured. Mira didn't look up. Neither have you. He stepped closer, careful, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt. What are you planning? Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a snarl. War. Adrian sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. They want you to come alone. You know that's suicide. She finally looked at him, her gaze hard. You think I don't know? But I'm done being their pawn. I'm done waiting for the next bullet, the next knife in the dark. Tomorrow I walk into their den on my terms. Adrian's jaw tightened. You won't walk out. Maybe not, she said coolly. But I'll make damn sure they bleed before I fall. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Adrian crossed the room, kneeling so that his eyes were level with hers. His hands brushed hers, tentative but warm. Mira, he said softly, I've lived in their world. I know what they'll do. You're stronger than you think, but this isn't just strength, it's madness. Don't let revenge consume you so completely that you forget why you started. Her throat tightened. She wanted to pull away, to spit back that this wasn't about forgetting, it was about remembering. Remembering the humiliation, the betrayal, the endless manipulation. But his eyes, there was no mask in them now, just raw truth. Her voice wavered. And what if revenge is all I have left? Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Then let me carry some of it with you. The words struck deep, cracking something in her chest she had fought to keep sealed. For the first time since this nightmare began, Mira let her head drop against his shoulder. His arms wrapped around her, steady and protective, and for a brief, stolen moment, the world outside ceased to exist. But only for a moment. By dawn, Mira was a blade honed for battle. She dressed in black, every movement precise. Her coat concealed not only the silver dagger, but also the pistol Adrian had given her. Each weapon was a promise. No more hesitation, no more mercy. Adrian waited by the door, his expression unreadable. I told you not to go alone. And I told you, Mira replied, sliding a fresh clip into the pistol. This is my war. He handed her an earpiece, pressing it gently against her ear. Then at least let me be your shadow. I'll keep my distance. But if things go wrong, his voice trailed off, the implication heavy in the air. She slipped the earpiece in place, meeting his gaze.
Fine.
But if you get in my way, I won't hesitate. A wry smile flickered at the corner of his lips. That's what I like about you. The syndicate's chosen location wasn't a gilded hotel this time. It was an abandoned theater on the city's outskirts, a place that once echoed with music and laughter, but now stood hollow and decayed. Mira's heels clicked against cracked marble as she stepped inside, the scent of dust and mold mingling with the faint metallic tang of danger. The stage loomed ahead, curtains shredded, spotlights dead. And at the center of that stage, under a single hanging bulb, sat Cassandra, tied to a chair, gagged, eyes wide with terror. Mira's heartbeat thundered. Every instinct screamed trap. A slow clap echoed through the theater. From the shadows, Silas emerged, his tailored suit immaculate, his smile sharp as a blade. "Bravo, Mira," he said smoothly. "I almost doubted you'd come. But then again, you're not the type to run, are you?" Her hand brushed the dagger at her thigh. "Where's your army?" Silas chuckled. "Closer than you think." Figures stirred in the darkness above, balconies lined with syndicate men, their weapons glinting. Mira's pulse quickened, but her face remained calm, her voice steady. "You brought me here for a choice. So let's hear it." Silas tilted his head. But haven't you realized? The choice was never between Cassandra's life and death. The choice, Mira, is who you become. A puppet we can control, or a corpse we can bury. Her lips curled into a razor smile.
Funny.
I was about to give you the same choice. And as the word left her mouth, a sharp crack split the silence. Gunfire from the balcony. But it wasn't aimed at Mira. It was aimed at Silas. His body jerked, his eyes wide with shock as blood bloomed across his suit. The syndicate soldiers roared in confusion. Mira ducked, instinct driving her behind a crumbling pillar. Her earpiece crackled to life. Adrian's voice low and urgent. "Move, Mira.
Now."
You're not the only one who declared war tonight." Gunfire ripped through the theater, the sound deafening as syndicate men turned on each other in the confusion. Mira pressed her back against the pillar, heart hammering. Dust rained from the crumbling plaster as bullets tore through the air. "Adrian," she hissed into the earpiece. "What the hell did you just do?" His voice came quick, sharp. "Silas wasn't your real enemy. He was a leash they kept on you. Someone else is pulling the strings, and now the chain just snapped." She risked a glance around the pillar. Silas lay sprawled on the stage, blood seeping into the wood. Cassandra writhed in her chair, muffled screams drowned by the chaos. Syndicate soldiers shouted, firing wildly, some at Mira, some at each other. Adrian's warning rang in her ears. "Not the only one who declared war tonight." "What did you do?" Mira demanded. No answer. Her grip tightened on the pistol. "Damn him. Damn all of them." Mira darted from cover, rolling behind an overturned row of theater seats. A bullet clipped the fabric of her coat, the force spinning her sideways. Pain flared, but she pushed it down. She couldn't afford weakness, not here. The theater's old chandelier swayed precariously above the chaos, its cracked crystal shimmering in the flickering light. Mira's eyes narrowed.
Perfect.
She raised her pistol and fired 3 sharp shots into the chandelier's rusted chain. With a thunderous crack, it plummeted, shattering across the stage. Syndicate men scattered, some crushed beneath the debris. Mira sprinted forward, boots crunching glass, and reached Cassandra. The woman's eyes widened as Mira ripped the gag free. Cassandra's first words were a ragged sob. Why?" "Shut up," Mira snapped, slicing through the ropes with her dagger. "If you want to live, move." Cassandra stumbled to her feet, legs trembling. Mira shoved her toward the side exit, but before they reached it, the doors burst open. A new wave of men stormed in. These weren't Silas's soldiers. They moved with precision, black tactical gear, instead of syndicate suits, their weapons sleek and deadly. Cassandra froze. Who are they?" Mira already knew. The hairs on her neck rose. These weren't syndicate men. They were cleaners. The syndicate's answer to loose ends. Her earpiece crackled. Adrian's voice was lower now, urgent but steady. Mira, listen. These aren't mine. They're sent to erase everything. You, Cassandra, Silas's mess, it all disappears tonight. You think I need you to tell me that? She spat. But the bitterness in her tone wasn't only for Adrian. It was for herself. She should have seen this coming. The cleaners fanned out, weapons raised. Mira shoved Cassandra behind her, lifting her pistol. She didn't have enough bullets for this. Then, suddenly, Adrian was there, dropping from the balcony like a shadow made flesh, gunfire exploding in his wake. He moved with lethal precision, each shot dropping a cleaner where he stood. But there were too many. Go! Adrian barked at Mira. Take her and run. Mira's instinct screamed to move. But something in her twisted at the sight of Adrian standing his ground, buying them time with blood and fire. Damn him. Damn her. Damn this whole cursed game. She grabbed Cassandra's wrist and dragged her toward the backstage corridors. Gunfire echoed behind them, each shot hammering her skull like a countdown. The corridor stank of rot and dust. Pipes dripped overhead. Mira pushed Cassandra forward, every nerve on fire. Then footsteps. From the shadows ahead, a tall figure emerged, cloaked in black. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but Mira knew. She felt it. The puppeteer. The one behind all of this. The hooded man's voice was smooth, quiet, and cruelly calm. Mira Kavanagh. Always so much fire. Always so predictable. Cassandra whimpered behind her, clutching Mira's arm. Mira raised her pistol, the barrel steady despite the tremor in her chest. Take off the hood. A faint chuckle.
Why?
You already know who I am. Her breath hitched. Because deep down she did. The voice wasn't a stranger's. It was someone she had trusted. Someone she had loved. The hooded man stepped closer, boots echoing in the corridor's hollow chamber. Water dripped steadily from a broken pipe above, each drop punctuating the silence, like a clock counting down. Mira's finger tightened on the trigger. I said, take it off. The man sighed, slow and deliberate. Then, with one hand, he pulled back the hood. The world tilted. Her chest constricted, air catching in her throat. Ethan, she whispered. Ethan Kavanagh. Her brother. The brother who was supposed to be dead. Her vision blurred as shock crashed into her. Childhood memories flickered. Muddy shoes in their garden, whispered secrets at night, his hand always reaching back for hers when they ran. He had been the one anchor in her fractured life. And now, he was the puppeteer. You're supposed to be, her voice broke. You died in that fire. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. That's the story they fed you. And you swallowed it whole. Just like you swallowed every lie they gave you. Mira's arm wavered. Rage battled with disbelief inside her. Why? Why? Ethan's voice hardened, venom seeping into every syllable. Because our family was collateral. Father's debts. Mother's shame. Do you know what it's like, Mira, to watch them burn while you're dragged into the dark and told your life will never be yours again? The syndicate didn't kill me. They remade me. Cassandra whimpered behind Mira, trembling. Ethan's eyes flicked toward her. And you brought her. How fitting. The woman who sold you out before, clinging to you now. Have you learned nothing? Shut up. Mira's voice cracked like thunder, echoing down the corridor. Don't you dare twist this. You chose them. You chose this. No, Ethan said coldly. I chose survival. You were too weak to see the world for what it is. That's why you've been running in circles, betrayed, broken, used. Because you're still clinging to the idea of loyalty, of love. Her pistol trembled, tears stinging her eyes. And what about me? You left me. You let me mourn you all these years. You let me hate myself for surviving when you didn't. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe, crossed his face. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Mourning is fuel. It made you strong, didn't it? Look at you now. Dangerous. Ruthless. Just like me. I am nothing like you, Mira hissed. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. You will be. When the syndicate falls, when Adrian falls, when every single piece of this rotten city bows to us, you'll see the truth.
And you'll join me.
You always were my shadow, Mira. You were meant to follow me. She raised the gun higher, aiming square at his heart. If you think I'll ever stand beside you, you're more delusional than I thought. But her voice cracked on the last word. Because despite the fury, despite the betrayal, part of her, the part that still remembered his hand pulling her out of danger when they were kids, hesitated. Ethan leaned in close enough that she could feel his breath. You won't shoot me, because deep down you still love me. The weight of his words suffocated her. Before she could react, a thunderous explosion rocked the theater. The ground shook, dust cascading from the ceiling. Distant shouts and gunfire surged louder. Adrian's voice cut through her earpiece, ragged but alive. Mira, they're collapsing the building, get out. Ethan smirked. Time's up, sister. He stepped back into the shadows, his voice echoing as he vanished. Choose your war. And then he was gone. Mira stood frozen, chest heaving, pistol still raised at empty air. Her brother, the ghost she'd grieved for, the boy she'd loved, was alive. And now he was her enemy. Cassandra tugged at her arm, sobbing. We have to move. The ceiling cracked above them. The theater groaned, as if it were about to give way. Mira swallowed the scream clawing its way up her throat, her heart breaking with each beat. She turned, dragging Cassandra through the collapsing corridors, Ethan's words still burning in her mind. Choose your war. The night blood fire. The theater was collapsing in on itself, flames chewing through velvet curtains, plaster cracking, the air thick with smoke. Mira half-dragged, half-carried Cassandra through the choking haze, her lungs screaming with every breath. Mira. Adrian's voice boomed, cutting through the chaos. He stumbled into view from the side corridor, his shirt torn, blood streaking down his arm. Relief and fury crashed through her all at once. You're alive, she gasped. I told you I'm hard to kill, he said grimly. His eyes darted to Cassandra. You saved her. She's not the only ghost tonight, Mira snapped, her voice like shattered glass. Ethan's alive. Adrian froze. For a moment he said nothing. Then he cursed under his breath, anger flickering across his face. So, he finally showed himself. You knew. Her fury flared like a blade. I suspected, Adrian said, his tone harsh but steady. The syndicate never erases a weapon they can use again. But I didn't know he was yours. Before Mira could answer, gunfire erupted behind them. Out of the smoke, Ethan emerged, calm, composed, untouched by the firestorm. His black coat billowed as if he were the eye of the chaos, not a victim of it. You should have left when you had the chance, Ethan said, his voice smooth as ever. But no, you had to stay. You always had to fight. Mira raised her pistol, her hands trembling but steady enough to aim. And you always had to betray. Cassandra whimpered, clinging to the wall. Adrian stepped forward, blocking Mira slightly, his gun raised. Ethan's eyes slid to him, ice and fire burning together. Still her savior, Adrian? How noble. Tell her how many times you pulled the trigger for the syndicate before you found your conscience. Tell her how many families you broke apart before you decided you wanted to play hero. Mira's chest heaved. Ethan's words dug into her like poison knives. She wanted to scream at them both, wanted to silence them with bullets. But she needed the truth. Enough, she shouted, her voice echoing through the crumbling theater. Both of you. I don't care about your excuses. I care about ending this. The ground shook violently, another section of the ceiling crashing down. Fire roared higher. Time was running out. Ethan smirked, tilting his head. Then end it.
Shoot me. Kill your brother.
Kill the last piece of family you have left. The pistol wavered in her hands. Don't listen to him, Adrian urged, his voice fierce. He's not family anymore. He's the syndicate. And if you don't stop him, Mira, he'll burn this city to ash and you with it. Ethan spread his arms, fearless. Go on, sister.
Choose. Him or me.
Love or blood. Which war is yours? The moment stretched unbearable. Mira's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Then she fired. The shot cracked like thunder, echoing through the inferno. Ethan staggered back, shock flickering across his face as blood bloomed across his chest. He stared at her, betrayal and pride mingling in his eyes. For one fleeting second, he almost smiled. Then he collapsed into the flames. Mira stood frozen, the pistol shaking in her grip. Her brother. Her ghost. Her enemy.
Gone.
Adrian lowered his gun, his eyes locked on her. You did what had to be done. Don't, she whispered, her throat raw.
Don't tell me that.
The theater groaned, beams snapping as the fire consumed the last of its bones. Adrian seized her wrist, pulling her toward the side exit. We have to move.
Now.
They burst out into the night just as the building imploded, a tower of fire clawing at the sky. Mira collapsed on the pavement, coughing, her body trembling. Cassandra knelt nearby, sobbing into her hands. The city's sirens wailed in the distance, but the night felt unnaturally quiet, as if holding its breath. Adrian crouched beside Mira, his hand brushing her shoulder. It's over. She lifted her head, meeting his eyes. In them, she saw truth, regret, and something else, something dangerously close to love. But in her chest, all she felt was hollow. No, she whispered, staring at the flames devouring the theater. It's not over. Not yet. Because even as Ethan's face faded into smoke and memory, his last words lingered. Choose your war. And Mira knew her war had only just begun.